Any given Sunday, it was a good week. A little bit flukier, maybe not as outright offensive as week 2, but certainly not as much of a dud as 1. We had some fireworks on the go. We don't have kickers in this particular league, but we might have actually benefited this week. They got a lot of work. Our defenses did, and actually, weirdly enough, we're in one of those situations where in a skilled position in wide receiver, 2 of the top 5 people are not and are still not taken overall. 1 from Vegas, 1 from Chicago. I'll let you figure that one out. Anywho, let's get on to some football before we get into our scores. I'm not sure if the Goldilocks reference works, but realistically, if week 1 was a little light on the offense and week 2 is return to form, I guess week 3 was kind of in the middle, and certainly they kind of came sporadically. Randomly enough, I think you're going to see a lot of people's high scores were defense and kickers because apparently blocking field goals is super easy. On a really, really weird note, I had a trippy, most of you know I'm in Thailand, and so I don't usually get to watch the early games, and I do kind of tune in for the later ones as I wake up. I couldn't sleep, so I was up at about 2 o'clock or 1:30, I think. I caught the second half or even parts of the first half of the early games. And most of them weren't great. And so I kind of like rolled back to bed and thought, well, some fantasy updates. And then as I'm like kind of half sleeping, all I'm hearing is more noise, which usually means stuff's going on. And it was. A lot of the games got super close. We had 4 games come down to a game-winning field goal. And weirdly enough, also 4 block kicks. And I distinctly remember in my dreamy state being like, it is kind of hard to block when you're kicking, isn't it? And then almost on cue. At least that's how I remember it happened. It probably wasn't. Anyway, aside from that, we also had our first few kind of run of injuries. I know we had a couple. We did have a running back out last week and a bunch of quarterbacks. But now we're getting a few more either season ending in Najee. I think that's pretty much confirmed. And Connor, definitely, if you watched it. Then you get the ones, the beloved high ankle of CeeDee Lamb. And I know they say sprain on it, but just like I said last week, there's some things that we know enough to read between the lines. It is not an ankle sprain when it's high ankle. Hopefully for those people who have them, we have the best. But waiver wires are going to heat up a little bit because of it. We're also looking at trends and patterns shifting. We still have some 3-0 and some 0-3 teams, but there were 3 teams, Saints, Panthers, and Chiefs, that walked into week 3 having not have 1 second of the lead. 2 of those 3 won, so now it's just the Saints, not surprisingly. Indy punted for the first time, so Indiana Daniel Jones, I'm not fully leaning into that nickname, not as much as like Drake, maybe, because that one's funnier. But they did finally punt. The punter earned his paycheck after 2 weeks, and it was only just the once, but still, the Colts are a little on fire. So I guess the biggest thing heading into week 4 is this enough data for you to be convinced? Is Daniel Jones going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, or are things about to come back down to earth? And I guess your variance on that kind of depends on who's on your bench. But that's enough for NFL. Let's get to our scores. Coming out of the gate here, we got 2 looks like Detroit references in their name teams here with Joe and Kevin. Kevin taking it though, 153 to 144. Huge matchup. Obviously a lot of points scored, consistency across the board, but we did have a few players ring the bell. Weirdly enough though, it actually looked like Motor City had a bit more. If you look at his squad first, he did have the tight end 5. If you look all the way down here, Caleb, quarterback 1, and he did have a running back in Mason be the running back 3. On the flip side, Kevin had the best defense, and by far you get 30 points out of your defense, my gosh. And the aforementioned Gibbs, and I say aforementioned because it is in his names after all. Now, he was not the highest scoring Detroit running back, but he was the running back 4, which is obviously a big deal. That game was pretty crazy. Mostly good decisions here. My God, Mariota was actually just outside the top 5 quarterback-wise. So, think about that when you go to bed tonight. Both teams deserve to win. Only one got it. So, congrats, Kev. 15 points as a differential is actually usually one of the better ones. Not this week, though. We did have a couple decent matchups and a couple stinkers, but we'll get to those ones. Michael, sorry you fell short. You were throwing stones, kicking bones, but that did not quite get you up to Ernie's McCracken. Almost got that out without giggling. Congratulations. We got a 3-0, obviously in first place. We'll get to that when we get to the standings. Now, how did this go down? Going to cover actually throwing stones first because weirdly enough, they were lighting up the scoreboard. You had the wide receiver 2 and the wide receiver 3 in Sutton and Nico respectively. All the way down there in your second quarterback technically was Jalen Hurts, but he was the number 2 overall as well. And you did have the running back 2. Where is... Oh, crap, Bengals. He's on your bench there. He is the Detroit number 1. Well, you know what I mean. Point scoring. Running back 2. Might have helped you out. Don't think it would have tipped the scale because you actually had enough points across the board. Didn't have any super stinkers unless you could have maybe moved the receiver up. That could have been close. But anyway, I don't want to do math. And on the other ways, doesn't matter anyway because Ernie McCracken took it down. You had the running back 1 and Taylor is looking to be a tad of a steal. Lamar Jackson was the quarterback 4. And you had a bit of a tight end issue as in you had too many points from your tight ends. Jake the Snake Ferguson was the tight end 4. Mark Andrews was the tight end 2. Can't blame you for not trusting him after his first 2 weeks, but 2 touchdowns later, although one of them admittedly was a garbage time touchdown. Fantasy doesn't know that, so they gave you the points anyway. Good, valiant effort throwing stones, but Ernie McCracken was not to be taken down this week. Congrats to our current number 1. I mentioned we had some close ones. This one's another one. And given these 2 gentlemen, it came down to math, maybe. I don't actually understand this. Paul, you had a good week, obviously. 114, obviously good enough to win. But nobody in the top 5 on any of the categories, which is super rare. James Cook was pretty close. And I think it just came down to, look at the bench. I'm not making this up. No one here ringing the bell, although Hampton, we'll get to him in a second. You just didn't have any absolute stinkers. Obviously, 6 points from Chase sucks, but at least it's 6 points. And as you're going to see, a lot of us did have some players kind of maybe not even get to that level here. Now, Jake did have some people ring the bell. Wide receiver 5 and A.J. Brown finally did something. They've realized in Philly if they throw the ball, he might catch it. Allen was also the quarterback 5, just kind of consistently plugging along, putting in great weeks. Unfortunately for you, you had as your running backs and Chase and Kamara just collectively barely got over 10 points, and Tucker Kraft just wasn't doing what Tucker Kraft was doing in previous games. I did point over here, though, you got to be pretty happy. I mean, you don't want to cheer for injuries. I totally get that. But sometimes when they benefit you, you can cheer in your head, I guess, because Hampton was the running back 5 after taking over primary carries. We'll see how he does next week. So both scores, not necessarily the highest, but a 5-point differential nonetheless. Could have gone either way. This time it went a pretty good way. Ugh. Well, unfortunately, I'm on the wrong side of the bagel on this one. I got the Ofer, whereas Will held on. I thought I was going to take him down there for a while. Why? Because none of us were really doing anything super, super crazy here. Now, if you do look at Will's, he had a 3rd best defense, so that's pretty good. For me, I checks notes. Yeah, sucked pretty bad if you look at it. I mean, I had a whole bunch of not awesome going on. Even my defense. Weird that Seattle's defense might have cost me. We look at our benches. Will, let's just agree to disagree on this one, or even agree to just, we'll do better next week. Hey, but at least your do better comes with a victory and a top 2 finish right now overall. I am pretty close to making some drastic trades, so just throwing that out to the league. 0-3 is not out of it yet. As the great Nelson Muntz once said, talk about your pieces of crap. Both teams kind of fell and tripped out of the gate. However, one tripped a little bit more aggressively. Now, Ben, not really your fault, but you just didn't have a whole lot on the go. Or maybe it was your fault. That's right, you benched the quarterback 3 overall, so that probably would have helped you out, especially when you didn't take advantage of the Superflex. Bold move, Cotton, but didn't pay off, unfortunately, for your end. And you did have some stinkers. Now, on the other side, well, I shouldn't just say stinkers. You did have a pretty significant injury, and that obviously shifted things pretty badly in the other favor. But you can't really complain because, Jim, you survived an even worse injury. Not because it's a worse injury. Connor is definitely out, whereas CD might come back. But yours was with 0 points, so that's not great. You did have the defense 5, so, you got that going for you. But you are going to have to obviously try and make some accommodations. Now, Connor, Some shifting's going to have to be done. CD, we're hearing that maybe he's not back, but I'm sure you'll get on that one. You definitely need to shake things up a bit. May doing great. Penix, I can't even make the Penix Envy joke every week. I am going to try and make it every week because I think it's funny. We don't have it this week, though. Maybe that change is going on. Either way, you know what? You're 2-1. A win is a win is a win, and you are in the top 5. Ben, you're still doing better than me, so you got that going for you. Don't always do this, but sometimes I like to just scroll on down before I get to week 4 just so we can check it out. Always seems to work like this. 2 3-0s, 2 0-3s. They always seem to even each other out. Everybody else in the middle here, but things are about to get shaken up. I'm sure. Oh, great. I got the number 1. 2 undefeateds back-to-back in a row. So I guess pinatas just happen like that. It's really tough, as I say almost every week, to really balance this out. Not everybody has put their lineup in, but if this is a matchup within 2 points, that should be exciting. Either way, there are a few wrinkles going into this week, but I'll get to that on my outro here. Okay, I said maybe a few wrinkles. I mean just mainly one. Dublin is going to come into play. The Euro game does start things a little bit earlier. For all of us over in this side of the world, it means maybe before we go to bed, we might actually catch a game or be weird like me and wake up in the middle of the night. But the catch a game one, that's a lot easier. So do check your rosters early. I know some people have plans, but I would assume in this one, it's not going to screw things up too late unless you really wait to the last minute on Sunday to set your rosters. So take a look. The Dublin games, Euro games are usually fun, but I don't know. Personally, I have my own opinions. We'll get to those maybe a little bit later on. But for now, best of luck in week 4, everyone.